I'm Greg Hawk. I'm here to tell you another story. This one has to do with old John, who I mentioned in my book. When he was growing up as a little boy out here on a mining camp that had a railroad coming through it back around the early 1900s. He's telling me this story. He got real sick when he was a little boy and he came down with pneumonia. And he said he played a lot with the little Indian boys and girls here in the area, Indian children, and the Indians give his dad some kind of a weed to make a tea out of. And he did, and he said his dad gave him this tea, and by morning he was cured. Pneumonia was gone. So over the years, he's came back out here a couple times and stocked up on it. He told me he could find it between 5,000 and 6,000 feet back here in the mountains. Okay, right across from me is Barnwell, California. It's an old kind of a ghost town now, but it used to be a mining camp, and there was a railroad used to come through here, and then went on over to Searchlight at one time. That's when the mining was booming back here. Well, John kind of described this old mining town that had a railroad, and it wasn't there anymore. So I'm kind of thinking this might have been the place. And he said it was in the New York mountains, which is that way, these mountains out here. And at about 5,000 to 6,000 feet is where he found this weed. So today we're going to go back in there and see if I can't find this weed. I know what it looks like because when I visited John back in the 90s, he showed me he had some in a paper sack he kept because he'd went to the hospital once and come down with pneumonia, and he had his caregiver at home boil up some of this tea and bring it to him at the hospital because the doctors had give up on him, he said. So he drank that tea, and the next morning his lungs were clear. He said he never told the doctors what happened because they couldn't believe he got well so quick. But anyway, this is where we're at. We're at Barnwell, and we're going to go back in the New York mountains back here and see if we can't find some of this weed that John was talking about. He showed me it. I know what it kind of looks like. It's been 25 years or so, but I still think I can see, come up with it. I think I'll know it when I see it. So anyway, we're going to head back. This is part of the old railroad bed. It's still here. It goes into Barnwell. If you look on down the way, you can see those kind of cuts in the mountain. That's where the railroad was running, along that cut in that mountain. And it comes on down through here, crosses the road, and it goes on up to Barnwell. Just thought I'd give you a quick shot of that. It's pretty interesting history here. Okay, we're heading back in the mountains now. And you see this road's getting pretty rough. I'll go as far as I can, then we'll park the truck and I'll finish hiking in there and see if we can't find some of that weed. All right. Okay, parked my truck. This road's getting to look pretty bad down here. And you can see it's pretty rough behind me. We're gonna go ahead and hike up from here. Some people think they can make it through here. You probably can, but I'm back in here by myself. I don't have cell phone coverage. And actually nobody knows where I'm at. So if something happens, I just not take so many chances. I can always get out from here. And anyway, that's the way it is. I'll go ahead and hike on up here. And as soon as we get up there where I think we might find something, I'll stop and then we'll have a look around, all right? Thought I'd stop along the trail here. Looked like it had some rain last night up here, which is good. And I was looking at this plant right here and at the leaves. That's not quite what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's got like 3 prongs on the end. So we'll go on up the canyon a little bit further and see if we can't find it. Okay, I probably hiked maybe a mile or so from where I parked the truck. I might have been able to go a little further in my truck, but I didn't want to press my luck, and one has to know one's limitations. Anyway, we're kind of in a low area here, like a little spring, and I saw some pipe running down the trail, maybe the watering trough. Old John said he picked this stuff up around 5,000 to 6,000 foot elevation. I think we're just about in that zone right now. So I'm going to look around here and see if we can't find some of it. Okay, I've climbed up the slope, maybe, I don't know, 60, 75 feet up the slope. It's a little drier up here. And I think I found what I'm looking for. If you notice, I can get in closer than that or not. These leaves have like a little triangle to them on the end. So I'm going to pick some of this and take it back and see if I can't get it identified and see if it does have medicinal properties. There's several of these plants up here. So John knew where they were, and we'll just have to figure out where else they grow. Anyway, that's that. I'm going to make a few cuttings here, then we'll head back down. Well, we just made it out, and I got brought a bag back of cuttings to see what the stuff is, but that whole slope up there where I was at was covered with it. So it's a good indication. It's fairly easy to find up there. And like I said, it's between 5,000 and 6,000 feet is what the old man told me where it'd be, so that's about where it's at. Okay, I'm back again. It's been 4 or 5 weeks since I took those cuttings up in the mountains. I brought them back and I put them in a box and turned them every day for a few days there to just keep them drying out. Try to see what I could get those leaves off there. But anyway, I contacted the Las Vegas Botanical Gardens to see if they had someone that could help me identify this plant. And the fellow got in touch with me and he said, well, just send me a picture of it. I'll see what I can do. Well, I did. I sent him a picture close up of some of the stems. Within 5 minutes, he got right back with me. He says, yeah, that's a state flower of Nevada. It's called big sagebrush, or Artemisia tridentata. Well, the tridentata means it's like 3 fingers on the end of it, which I was looking for. So that was pretty interesting. So I went online. I figured I'm going to do some more research and see if this really does have some medicinal properties to it. So here's something I read. It was used widely employed by many native North American Indian tribes who use it to treat a wide range of disorders. An infusion of the fresh or dried leaves is used to treat pneumonia, bad colds with coughing, and bronchitis. Well, infusion is like they let it set overnight in a fruit jar and stays for 12 hours and just let the leaves kind of soak up the water and just slowly let loose of their medicinal properties. So that's an infusion, okay? And they say that a decoction of the leaves, which is when you kind of boil them, I boil them for a couple minutes and I'll let it steep for about 20 minutes and then take it before bedtime. And that's a decoction. That's good for treatment of digestive disorders and sore throats. Well, I thought, wow, that's really pretty interesting stuff. So that's why I went ahead and I got some tea bags and started bagging this stuff up and making some of it up for friends of mine and whoever. And a friend of mine I had a beer with one night, he flew into town, and 2 days later he texts me, says, hey Greg, he says, I hate to tell you, but I got COVID. He says, my wife and I both came down with it. And he said, just be careful. I said, well, listen, I'm going to send you some of this tea. And I sent him directions on how to brew it up and overnighted it to him, actually. And a day later, after he got it, he made the decoction and made the infusion overnight in a jar. And the next day, he says, wow. I said, that stuff helped both of us. And he says, I had a little sore throat this morning. I kept drinking that jar of liquid during the day, and man, it's pretty well knocked it out. He's 2 or 3 times that week I got thank yous from him. So I think that it is a very good help. It maybe helps clear your lungs up and your sore throat. I'm not a doctor. This is just This is an old herbal remedy that old John told me that I mentioned in my book. Okay, and so then I went and did a little bit more research because John had pneumonia, and this COVID pneumonia is supposedly even worse. It just gums your lungs up, it just fills up. And if you go into ICU and they got to put a ventilator down you, I was talking to ICU nurse, and they have to do what they call proning every 4 hours. And what that is it takes 4 people to turn that person over, run a tube down in their lungs and suck that gunk out, and they have to put them under a sedative to do that. So I mean, that's pretty intense stuff. So I went online and I found out a little 4.5-minute YouTube video put out by Dr. Osama Ravel. He's an MD, he's a doctor down in Florida, and he put out this little 4.5-minute video on proning. And he shows you if you're not in the hospital and you get like congestion and stuff, how to get this stuff out of your lungs and how to cough it out to try to keep that stuff coming up. And I would watch that if, it's very educational, and the guy is a doctor and knows what he's talking about and helps clear his lungs out. So I just want to tell you all about that, okay? Other than that, I'm going to take you out and tell you about another herb that's out here in the desert. It's plentiful and grows all around. I'll give you a little hint. First thing in the morning after a rain, you walk out there through the desert and you'll smell it. It's got a pungent smell to it. So let's head on out to the desert, and I'll show you a little bit about that herb, okay? We're in the foothills just east of Henderson, Nevada, out in kind of the desert. And I wanted to tell you about a plant out here that old John told me about in my book. He said that there was a little old lady who used to do darning needles and knitting, and she was doing it on her front porch every day, and her hands got so bad, her joints, that she couldn't hold the darning needles anymore because of the arthritis that got into her joints. So he went out and he picked some twigs and stuff off what he called the creosote bush. It's also called greasewood. And he took it back to her and he told her to put it in a crock pot and cook it down, and to soak her hands in it twice a day for about an hour, as hot as she could. And at the end of a week, change it out for a new batch. Put some more creosote bush in there, some twigs, and make another batch and brew it up. And he went back 6 weeks later, and here she was on her front porch darning with her darning needles, and her joints went down, the swelling. She was using the needles perfectly, and she was just so happy that she was able to get use of her hands again. So it's just one of the many uses for this plant. There's a lot of medicinal values. I come to find out, I went online and looked for medicinal values to this. Besides being called a creosote bush, it's called greasewood, and for medicinal purposes, it's called chaparral. Okay, so and the proper name for it is Lirera tridentata. Okay, I'm going to put that right there. Okay, the tridentata, like I said earlier, because the end of the leaves have like 3 little prongs on them. So that's why they call it tridentata. It's got like 3 little parts to it. Okay, this creosote bush out here, you can buy creosote bush oil and use it for a lot of things, but the health benefits, there are a lot of them. And the Indians knew about it years ago, because right after rain, you could go out walking through here in the desert, and it leaves early in the morning, it's a real pungent smell. You'll notice it off the creosote bush. And the Indians use it for many things. They had, just to name a few, it's good for acne, hemorrhoids, heals bruises and wounds, relieves headaches, sun protection. You can mix with oils and stuff and use it for sun protection. Eczema and psoriasis, heals muscular cramps, body pain, Kidney stones, heals asthma, heals tooth decay, eliminates gallstones, heals diabetes. This is a fantastic plant. You know, it grows everywhere out here. Below 5,000 feet, you're going to find it, and it's very sturdy plant. It survives well in the desert, and it's got a unique property which for survival. On the bottom of these leaves is actually where it breathes. And early in the morning when the moisture's high, that's when photosynthesis takes part and it breathes in and out. Once it gets hot and the humidity drops, the plant basically shuts down. That way it doesn't lose a lot of its moisture during the daytime. So it's adapted over the millions of years to the heat and climate. So it's quite a unique plant. And I just thought I'd bring this up to you. And if you're close to the desert or whatever, this is something to look into, all right? And I'll be back to you later, all right?